Welcome to Saturday Shop Tour. This week, Michele Melcher takes us on a tour of her studio and demonstrates how she uses traditional and digital techniques to create her illustrations and oil paintings. Let's get started. Also, don't miss the time lapse at the end of this video.
Hi everybody, I'm Michele. This is our house. I'm an illustrator and a fine artist who I work digitally for editorial illustrations, and I do oil painting. And here in Carversville, which is Central Bucks. I don't know if you're familiar with the river towns along New Hope and Lambertville, and well, I'm sure Carl is because of Bristol, but we're right along the river in Central Bucks. Anyway, let's go inside and I will show you a little bit about what I do and where I do it. This is, we live in a really old house. It's probably, there's two dates on the deed, 1803 and 1845. It was originally a one-room house. We're not quite sure exactly what date is the truth, but anyway, this is you know, we moved here about 3 years ago, and this is where I work. Well, not down here, upstairs, but I'll tell you a little bit about what I do with the fine art first. I started oil painting about 3 years ago. I had previously worked in watercolor and pen and ink and just about everything, and I always kind of shied away from oil. I was a little, you know, intimidated to take the time to learn something because you got to suck at it for a while. But, you know, I picked it up and that's all I want to do now. This is actually, I got really lucky with this. This was my first painting that I ever did. And I have had screw ups and stuff, but I got lucky with this. The subject matter that I usually deal with is Memento Mori, which means remember you must die. It's a Latin term. It's just to kind of remind you to live, you know, because we all die. It doesn't matter if you're rich or poor, who you are, what you do. Don't waste time. Try to do the best that you can. Memento Mori, I mean, it looks like a morbid subject matter, but it really isn't when you think about it. And I don't know. So that was my first painting. This is a newer painting that I did in January. I had a solo show at Princeton University. This is called The Monarch. Obviously, I am influenced by classic painting. There's a lot of different types of painting. I really like the old masters, the Dutch masters, Paulus Potter, Rembrandt, Alexander Roslin. I love portraiture. Obviously, these don't have any skin on them, but I'm working on that. Yeah, so this is the type of work that I do with my oil painting. Some might consider it dark. I mean, maybe it is dark, but I don't think it's all that dark. So anyway, let's go in the new side of the house, which this was built in 1983, and we like to surround ourselves with things that we're interested in, you know, curiosities, oddities. I have a lot of animal skeletons here, different artwork from other artists, antiques, anything. I mean, just stuff that inspires me. That's what we fill our house with. So you won't find any decorator art here. Yeah, so anyway, I'm like blah, blah, blah. Feel free to ask me questions because otherwise I'm just like a talking head. Let's go up to the studio. Okay. So this is where I work. It's kind of a shared space on the second floor. I have my computer here where I do my digital illustration. I work on a Wacom tablet. I'll show you a little bit about that in a minute. And then there's my art table where I do the painting. It's a great space. There's a lot of light. I have a forest on one side of me and a cornfield on the other and a skylight. So it's kind of, you know, it's a great place, except when it gets to be 500 degrees, which it will this afternoon. Okay, so let's sit down and I will show you some of the stuff that I do for my editorial clients. I do a lot of magazines. I do a lot of portraiture for magazines. This is a page off of my website, just kind of showing you the gallery of the different things that I do, which is totally different than the painting. All right, let's go over to Photoshop. I'm gonna do a little demo here. This is already drawn. This is Divine Joy, who I did a portrait for AARP. And the way that I work is I have the sketch drawn out, and then in Photoshop, I go into layers and I will start putting in skin tones and hair, and I just kind of build it from there. This doesn't have as many layers, but and then you have the final product. Another one that I did is Shania Twain. So this has a little bit more, I can show you a little bit more here how I build it. The skin tones, you know, I just kind of go one by one. I just build layer upon layer of detail until it becomes a person. It's kind of like coloring in the lines. I'm just turning on all of these layers. Put on her hair.
How does that determine where you're putting the color?
What do you mean?
I mean, I think you're selecting the color on the right side.
Oh yeah, these are just the layers that are already done. Here, I'll show you actually. I can draw on this file. What I would do is, say I wanted to change the background color of this shirt, which, you know, it's yellow. I would just make a layer. And I gotta bring it down to the right spot actually. Pardon me 1 minute. Ooh. Oh, I just lost the layer. Okay, here we go. What I would do is I go up to my color palette, which is up here, and I pick a color, whatever I would want to do. And then I choose my brush. Let's just choose a round brush. And then I start coloring it in. I don't have it on the, oh, I have to turn the opacity up. But yeah, it's a really cool tool because you can just kind of color on the screen with this. And, wow. You know, if you don't like it, then you can just delete it and change the color. But, and it also erases, which is pretty cool. It's just like having a pen or a pencil. There is a little bit of a learning curve with it. I mean, obviously you need to get used to writing on a screen as opposed to, you know, using a mouse. I used to have a Wacom tablet that was a separate thing. It was just like a pad, and I would draw more like a piece of paper and it would transfer to the screen. Whereas I got this new setup in January, and I'm still learning it, where you actually draw on the screen. It is a computer monitor. So, I mean, it has my email and everything on it. It's just a workhorse. So that's pretty cool. But anyway.
Just show how it tilts.
Oh, yeah, it also tilts too, which comes in handy because you can, which way is it? Why is it not working? Of course it's not working right now. Oh.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. So why did I turn on Keynote? I have no idea. But yeah, so you can work really large. You can turn it. I'm still learning with it, so I'm kind of, you know, in old habits right now from the old Wacom that I had. I need to really sit down and take the time. It has a really cool remote where you can program in keystrokes and stuff that you use. Like I use save and delete and go back a lot and stuff like that, instead of having to take out the keyboard, which is kind of the bad habit that I'm in right now. I sit here and I work and I have the keyboard on my lap and I'm doing my thing, and it's jiggling around, and I need to just get this. I need to sit down and do it, but I haven't really had the time. But
So what does something like that cost? I know everybody's thinking it, so I figured I'd ask.
Yeah. So that I can answer that one. So that's the it's the Wacom Intuos. It's their flagship one. So it's
it's a Cintiq.
It's a Cintiq. Yeah, I think it's like $3,500, which sounds scary.
Yeah.
But for
it's an investment though.
Yeah, most animators use it. Filmmakers use it.
Yeah.
Illustrators, of course, and fine artists.
Yeah,
Photographers.
Yeah.
So if you want to be able to draw on the screen,
yeah,
this is the one with the most sensitivity. And
it's great because you can use your finger to draw too, and of course it's not doing that right now.
And you do need a computer to hook it up to.
Oh, is that? Oh, okay.
Yeah. So if I go around back, you'll see there's a little MacBook powering the whole thing.
Yeah.
So it's just a high-end touchscreen monitor, really, right?
Right.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. It's got like pressure sensitivity, and you clean it once a week with a cloth. You don't use any liquid on it. Yeah, it's really interesting.
It's a beast.
It is, and I need to spend more time with it. So yeah, but yeah. So that's what I do with digital illustration.
And Michelle, before we move on, where are some of the places your illustrations have been printed in magazines? Like what type of, is there like a niche that you have, or?
Well, I've worked with a lot of different magazines. Like I did do a lot of just regular editorial illustration, say scenes of whatever I would get hired to draw. But now I'm trying to focus more on the portraits because it's easier for me to do portraits instead of coming up with this gigantic concept. And a lot of the times with editorial work, the deadline is really short. I've had deadlines that are a couple of days, and they're like, can you make this out of nothing? And you're like, yeah, sure, okay. But a portrait I can do in a couple of hours. So it's just easier for me. So that's what I'm scaling down to try to do. But to answer your question, I've done a lot of stuff for Philly Mag. I work a lot with AARP. I've done stuff for Smithsonian Magazine, Mainline Today, a lot of different magazines. I mean, not just local magazines either. I've done things for Seattle Weekly, Seattle Metropolitan. Yeah, I mean, American Express. So I don't know.
I knew that was one of your clients.
Like blabbing. So somebody asked me a question. That's why I don't need to keep talking.
No, that's great. I wanted to ask that before you moved on to the fine art stuff. That's all.
Oh, okay, yeah. All right, so let's move on to the fine art, which is totally different than the stuff that I just showed you. This is, obviously you saw that guy downstairs. This is just a gallery of everything that I have done so far. Lots of smiling faces on that board. Okay, so let's go over to the table where I can show you a little bit about what I do. Let me take this off the wall because I forgot to set this up earlier. All right. So obviously here's a finished painting. I don't know if there's a bad glare on that or not.
Yep.
I did this in, I guess it was January for my show at Princeton. And I'm just gonna tape it up here so it doesn't fall, because this table is a tilt table. I don't work at an easel like a lot of artists do. I don't like to stand, I'm too lazy. So I like to sit when I work. Obviously this is going to end up looking finished like that. How do I get from this to this? This is an underpainting. And I started working on this last night. What I do is I get in all of my values with just a light wash of, watered down oil paint, well, turpentine down, thin down oil paint. And I go and I get all of the values and stuff. And then eventually, I fine tune it so it looks pretty much like a black and white painting. And then what I do is I start layering glazes on of color, which is thin down paints, thin down color paint. And you just build it up and you build it up until it ends up like that. And then it does, this is, not everybody paints this way. This is the way that I paint. Some people paint something in one sitting. This takes me a couple of weeks. I can't paint wet on wet. I'm not one of those people that sits out in a field with an easel and paints a barn. That's just not what I do. I'm more of a studio painter. I do use a couple mediums to get the paint to dry a little quicker. There's something called Liquid, which has the oil paint dry in a couple of days, so you can work areas that you need to, you know, work on that otherwise would get smeared. Or if I have to ship something out on a deadline, it's really helpful. Because believe it or not, I do get deadlines with oil painting. And I mean, whether it's for a show or whether it's a commission that, you know, has to be delivered at a certain time, you want to make sure that it's not sticky when you pack it, because that could be terrible.
Can you talk about your brushes and stuff?
Oh yeah, let's talk about my brushes. So I have all kinds of brushes here. I tend to work small. I don't work really gigantic. So I have a lot of little tiny brushes, like anywhere from 20-0, like look at that tiny little tip there. It's like a hair. Ah, of course I can't get it back in the cap. To, you know, your bigger brushes, boar's hair to put down swaths of color and stuff like that. I never throw out a brush. I always keep the gross, you know, junky ones. They get, I murder brushes. I just destroy them. I scrub with them so much. They lose their points, but you can always use a crappy trash brush for something. So I don't throw them out until they are so beat that, you know, you can't use them. And then they might even become like a chemical brush that I mix something else with, and then they finally go in the trash. But I reuse everything. I have this little nifty little pot here that I have my thinner in. It has this little insert that has holes in the bottom. So all of the gross paint junk falls to the bottom and you don't keep getting it in your color when you, you know, when you need to use your thinner. I have a glaze here. This is actually, I haven't really painted in about 2 months because I've been working on a new series of sketches. As you can see, this is kind of dried up. This is a medium. I have to make a new one. It's linseed oil and a little bit of thinner mixed. And when I said before that I lay down the glazes of color, this is what I mean by glazing. You mix this medium with your paint to thin it out, and it becomes transparent. So you can lay down these transparent layers and build up to opaque. So anyway, this is a good example of it drying up. So it's all thick in the bottom.
Do you have your sketch on your computer?
For that, actually, I have the sketch here. I saved it. It's all scribbled. This is what I do. I have the sketch on my iPad too. It's kind of scribbled. How I transfer onto, it's kind of old school what I do. I just, you know, I print it out and then I draw on the back of it. I put it on my wood. I transfer it on, and then I start my painting. And that's like a really old school way to do it. Some people just paint right on the canvas. With what I do, I can't. I want to make sure that I have a guide. I don't just draw on it. I just, you know, it's just easier for me.
So Michelle, you freehand that on the computer first?
Yes.
Is that where you draw it? Okay.
Yes. Like, remember when we were in Photoshop when I was showing the digital illustration with the lines?
Right.
It's basically that. I draw a line version of what I'm going to do, and then I go in and I drop values in, which I'll show you. They're on my iPad right here. And this is
just a heads up. We're at the 5-minute mark. Just so you know. No rush. Just telling you.
Okay. This is black and white, just rough sketch of what this will be. this is the reference that I'm following. This woman, this Victorian woman and her dress and everything. So, and these are, you know, skeleton reference, close-ups of the dress. Here, I'll show you a little bit of how I work since we're here.
Can I ask, what do you use to transfer the drawing to the wood?
Oh, I just print out the drawing on paper,
Right.
and then I draw on the back of it.
Right.
On the back, and then, you know, so there's like a ghost version of it, and then I just basically rub it on, which is why it's all scribbled. Does that make sense?
Charcoal transfers.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just a charcoal pencil on the backside, right, that you're transferring.
Yeah.
to wood.
Yeah.
Okay, so then you rub it and it transfers to the wood.
Yeah, that's exactly what I do. And it's, like I said, it's a very old school way of doing it, but it works. And as you can see, these are oil paints, and I painted this last night and it's already dry because it's so thin with the thinner that I'm using. I haven't put any dryer in this, but this is pretty much how I work.
Do you prefer to paint on wood rather than canvas?
I do. And it took me a while to figure that out. I like wood because it's really durable and you can cut it in any size that you want. I collect a lot of old frames from antique markets and flea markets and stuff like that. So you can, you know, you get an old frame, you just cut the piece of wood to go in. I don't like the texture of canvas. I don't like the little squares that you see up in the painting.
Yeah.
That bothers me. I mean, it looks great. It's just a preference. I don't like that on my paintings. And I have done some things on canvas where I don't know, I don't like it. If that makes any sense. But, does anybody have any questions?
Well, I could ask, what?
Keep going, Pat.
Okay. So your medium with the linseed oil and thinner, what proportion? Is it half and half or?
I kind of eyeball it. It really depends on what you want to do. You can do half and half, or I mean, if you don't want it to be as thin and you want it to be more opaque, you would use less thinner. So I just kind of eyeball it depending on what I'm going to be doing. So yeah, that's not really technical. I'm not really, you know, I don't really have it down to a science. A lot of what I do is winging it. A lot of what, I mean, it might look like it's put together, but a lot of it's guesswork, and a lot of it is screwing up, and a lot of it is painting over the same thing 3 times before you get something that you like. And that's the good thing about oil paint. You can just paint over it.
Why don't you mention where they've been showed?
Oh, where the paintings been shown?
Yeah, we're sure.
Right now I have a painting up in New York at Stone Sparrow, New York, in Brooklyn. I also have several works at La Luz de Jesus Gallery in Hollywood. And I have several works over in Melbourne, Australia at Bein Gallery. I had a
Are they
lot
all
of
portraits too?
Excuse me?
Are they all portraits too?
Yes.
What you drew?
Yes. Yeah. That's what I'm kind of known for right now. So yeah, it's all the similar stuff. Actually, some of these. This is one of the ones. Oh, where did it go? This is one of the ones that's up in Australia, and along with these two are in Australia. This one is in New York right now, and a lot of the ones on the screen have already sold, or you know, they're older works. So, and that's downstairs. But
Awesome. Michele, Brian, thank you so much. This is a great tour of your studio and your work. Really appreciate your time. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for watching. If you like this and want to see more videos like it, hit the subscribe button and click the bell. We feature a new Maker Shop Tour every Saturday.